and welcome to Beyond the Deal. Let's talk about the shift in between that biggest decision.
Yeah, I think the reality is, like you said, you have to have resilience. Resilience is extremely important in business, particularly in Africa. No matter how structured your plans are, they're going to go wrong. Things go wrong all the time, and so to survive, you do need to have the flexibility and the temerity to lead, I would say with not just competence, but also expectation of things going wrong. So everybody keys into the fact that, they don't think about today. Today is too late if you're thinking about today. You're supposed to have thought about today yesterday. I started my company with, one or two partners 31 years ago, and we had no money. We borrowed the money from friends and family, started our business, and then able to secure a loan. You don't wait to be invited. You step forward and offer yourself.
When you are not negotiating billion-dollar deals, how do you unwind or recharge?
Two things I like. I like the sea. I like water. I like staring at water. So my idea of a good time to unwind is a good book. Battles are won before they are fought. Okay, and if you look at Africa from the point of view of all the things that are wrong, then you will win.
We dig into the minds behind the biggest moves in business. Our guest today is none other than Jubril Adewale, better known as Wale Tinubu, CON, a Nigerian business executive, lawyer, and the group chief executive of Owando PLC. Wale is widely known as the king of African oil. He has led one of Africa's largest energy companies through dramatic shifts in global and local energy markets. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be a year older?
Thankful. I'm in health, good health, and I'm excited about the future.
All right. Now, let's dive straight into it. You've led Owando through oil booms, economic downturns, and major regulatory shifts. What's been the toughest decision you've had to make as CEO, and what did that journey teach you?
I think 2014, when the price of oil collapsed after we did a $1.6 billion acquisition, I had to make a decision to restructure our group and pay down a substantial amount of debt, over $1 billion of debt I had to pay down, to enable us have healthy cash flows to service our existing liabilities and stay afloat as a company. So making a decision to sell one of our divisions, which was our marketing company, which we had over 500 petrol stations. And it was sad to see it go, but I was decisive, and when I knew that it had to be done, I took a decision and we exited from the business, paid down the debt, and survived.
Did that give you some sleepless nights?
I think the reaching the decision probably it did give me some sleepless nights, but having made that decision, the execution was swift.
Right.
Yes.
These are some of the lessons that we'd also want some youths in Africa to learn, that it's not about giving up. You didn't give up. And obviously, since 2014 till 2025, let's talk about the shift in between that biggest decision.
Yeah, I think the reality is, like you said, you have to have resilience. Resilience is extremely important in business, particularly in Africa. You do need to have the right vision for your business. You have to put together the right team, but execution is key because you have to be able to not just make decisions, but be able to see them through in a swift manner, in a structured manner, and certainly take into account all the challenges you would face in a normal environment. And I feel that between 2012 or 2014 and 2025, we've seen the whole economies evolve. We've seen oil prices shift. We've seen, geopolitics effectively change, and in all those factors, as they come and go in terms of affecting your business environment, you have to continue to stay flexible, but also stay purposeful and decisive in terms of running the company.
And a lot of businesses keep complaining about that period when there was COVID-19, that it affected their businesses. But from your explanation, you're just talking of 2014, we're in 2025. Let's talk about that period as well.
Well, to be honest with you, I actually quite enjoyed COVID. I mean, apart from the people passing away, I like the fact that I was able to stay home, stay close to my family. I went to the gym literally every day. I exercised, and we worked all through. And that was the first true example of remote working. But because we had always envisioned and planned as a group for emergencies, and our emergency was always if we had a fire, we had a bomb, or we had something, and we couldn't run our operations from our offices, how would we cope? So we've simulated that so many times within our group. We had a paperless office. We were fully computerized. We invested a lot of money in the early 2000s in our computer systems and our enterprise resource planning system. So working during COVID was very, very easy for our group.
It's my first to hear.
We never had any issues, and our production was at its highest because in the oil fields there was nobody disturbing our pipelines or our facilities or our flow stations. We had zero interference, and accordingly, our production was at its highest.
Right. Now, Africa also holds immense fossil fuel reserves, but it also has vast renewable potential. In your view, how should African leaders balance the need for sustainability with the realities of economic growth during the energy transition?
I think it's important to understand that we need to have a just transition and a fair transition. There's pressure, global pressure, for Africa to transit into a life of renewables. But we need to understand that, first of all, Africa faces a major energy deficit. 45% of this continent has no access to electricity as we know it, as we take it for granted.
Right.
And those people do have a right, to that same facility, which most of the world is enjoying today. And countries are going to have to use what they have available for them to transit. I mean, Africa is 3% of global emissions. It's only, 3% of global GDP. Yet, it's 20% of the population. So we're victims in Africa of the same thing which the West pushes forward, as opposed to we're actually victims of this malaise, and at the end of the day, you should expect to see some compensation afforded the Africans as opposed to the other way around. So we do need to transit, and a fair transit would be to use our gas resources. Africa has incredible gas resources, which is 50% less in pollution than coal. Coal is a major source of pollution in energy solutions today. And so we do need an energy mix that is fair, that can be justified, and countries can actually afford. And so that's really where I think we should focus on. And so you're not going to see Africa go straight into renewables, except it is affordable and sustainable for them. Because oftentimes the cost of renewables is much higher than traditional energy sources in the short time. But definitely over time, we will get there.
Then how should Africa really deal with the pressure from the West, like you said? Because, I mean, in time, yes, we can get there, but it looks like there's so much pressure. You see a lot of events, a lot of conferences pushing Africa that you have to go green, renewable energy. But as you just rightfully said, Africa is really not ready. So how can they just balance and stay away from that pressure?
Well, Africa has to insist that the West finances it. We have carbon credits. The fact that we are under polluters means that we should be compensated for that, based on population, based on economic consumption of global economic energy products. And so I think that the African leaders need to be very firm to say that if for us to transit, we do need to be compensated for the fact that we are victims of global emissions.
Right. And natural gas is also often called Africa's bridge to a cleaner energy future. What role do you see it playing in the continent's energy mix over the next 2 decades?
I think it's going to be substantial. Africa needs to industrialize. And the kind of power you need steady, substantial power to manage industrial production. And as a result of that, you do need to have sustainable energy sources. And our gas reserves on our continent will give us 300-400 years of gas of energy source. And I would say that whilst renewables become cheaper in the long term, we're going to have to run our gas, which will be substantially less emissions, 50-60% less than coal. And if you actually shut down every coal generating plant in the world and replace it with gas, you'll actually achieve net zero. You find that gas is actually a much cleaner source of energy, okay, than most of the products that are in competition to it.
Mm-hmm. And 77% of Africa is actually the youth. And talking about renewable energy as we transition slowly, what opportunities do you foresee the youth having in that transition as well?
Well, I mean, clearly there's so much that the youth are going to benefit from. I think that the technological advances which we've seen in the last 20 years are we've probably seen more technology advances in the last 20 years than the world has seen in the last 200. When you think about it, from everything from things we take for granted, whether it's, the information age, which we take for granted, currency, the way we spend, the way we transmit information, the way we run our economies, the capacity to even work remotely, the choices people have. And one of the key areas which the youth are very strong in is the creative arts, and just see the way and manner that creativity has been able to be monetized and spread around the world at much faster paces, thus creating a lot of value for those who are in the creative space. So I see opportunities coming, across the continent in particular. And it's a new continent. And if you look at the fact that what we tend to do is we tend to scale development, because at the end of the day, if the first opportunity you get at a good or service or product is something which is newly invented, then you don't need the old one. So for example, let's take something like telecoms and landlines.
Yes.
Most people, Nigeria used to have, when I was younger, in the year 2000, we had 50,000. Yeah, we didn't have that many landlines. I think we had only about 50,000 landlines in Nigeria.
Was it more for the elite?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And then we went from a country and we went to 120 million mobile phone lines. So most people never ever had a telephone line in their homes. And now everybody takes it for granted.
Right.
And so these are the advantages I see in terms of which this generation is actively. I mean, let's look at things like something like e-commerce, the capacity to trade across a continent. The fact that, for example, in Africa today, we have 52 different currencies, which is really sad, because for people to be able to convert and effectively trade within themselves, they have to first convert to the US dollar and then back to a local currency. But now, because of e-financial capacity, people are now able to send money electronically. So you have like the Pan-African Payment Systems, which was launched by the African Export-Import Bank, which enables you from any country in the world, pay by your local currency and purchase a good or service from any other country in Africa. I mean, these are things that never existed before. And all of a sudden, the ease of doing business is substantially improved.
And as a businessman, whenever you see the youth complaining that there are no jobs, there's really nothing to do in the continent. Okay, maybe let's talk about Nigeria specifically. What goes through your mind? What do you think about that? Because just now you mentioned a lot of opportunities that the youth can benefit from renewable energy transition. But when you even talk about climate change, I assure you that maybe 10% understand about that. But when you talk about such topics, nobody's interested. But post something about Nollywood or music, everybody's interested. What goes through your mind as a successful businessman today when you see the youth going through that?
The world has changed. There was a time when everything was structured. The world was industrialized and you had to work in a factory or work in an office. And you finished school, there was a structured form of employment. I remember, if you were successful enough or lucky enough to have a university education, 20 years ago, you got recruited by companies whilst you were in university, at the end of university. But what has changed in the world is innovation, and innovation has brought in a whole range of entrepreneurism which never existed. So when young people say they don't have jobs, yes, but they have opportunity which other older generations never had. Older generations only had one opportunity, which is to work in a structured environment. And if you were laid off, you were laid off. This generation, and I'm actually extremely impressed. For example, let's take Nigeria where we are, at the number of young people who are self-employed, who are creating value, okay? Once they have a smartphone or a laptop, they're in business. And they're creating tremendous amount of value across the board by running and functioning because they have the capacity to utilize e-commerce as a means. So whilst we look at unemployment levels, one of the things we never take seriously in Africa is self-employed numbers as well too.
Right. So I think the data needs to actually be looked at on that. And you've also navigated oil price volatility, geopolitical tensions, and shifting regulations. How do you stay strategic and resilient in such a high-stakes industry?
Planning ahead. We constantly scenario plan. So I plan for a high oil price, I plan for a low oil price, I plan for production, shutting in, reopening. I plan for the worst, and I always think that the upside will take care of itself. And so our organization is structured along the line that you need to plan that everything that will go wrong or can go wrong will go wrong. And accordingly, then it's easy to shake off disadvantage or negativity or things going wrong in a business plan. And that's a mantra. And I think in Africa, you have to understand that there's a huge difference between a clear line of vision and a straight line of execution. You will find that no matter how structured your plans are, they're going to go wrong. Things go wrong all the time. Okay. And so to survive, you do need to have the flexibility and the temerity to lead. I would say with not just competence, but also expectation of things going wrong.
Right. You understand that philosophy very well, and you have a huge staff, obviously a huge number of staff. You have offices, I think, in Dubai, here in Nigeria, in London, I don't know which other countries. That's a huge number of staff. So how do you also incorporate this philosophy into them to understand that anything can change at any time, so that other people can learn from this?
I think effectively our systems and processes force you to think long term. And so everything from even planning your career, we're thinking long term. We're thinking where will you be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Our investment horizons are long term as well too. Strategic planning is long term. And so everybody keys into the fact that, they don't think about today. Today is too late if you're thinking about today. You're supposed to have thought about today yesterday, And so planning is a way of life. For our organization, and that it's imbibed in our culture. That if you're going to be an Orlando person, you've got to, think sharp, think ahead. You know what I mean? Expect the worst. but plan for the best as well too.
Right. And I know that obviously when we stream this, we're going to have a lot of comments that would say, okay, Wale is talking like this because he comes from a privileged family. Look at even his surname. What's your comment on that when people feel like you are where you are today because you're privileged and even your surname, you share the same surname as the president of Nigeria?
Well, I think if they had seen me 30 years ago, they would have had a totally different perspective. I started my company with one or two partners 31 years ago, and we had no money. We had no money. We had drive. We had a desire to win. Okay, and we started out, with an opportunity to freight fuel. Okay, we borrowed the money from friends and family, started our business, and then able to secure a loan at 10% a month, which we got from a finance company. So you can imagine paying 120% as your loan. That wasn't privilege. That was just survival or the desire to win. Why would you borrow money at 120% per annum? I know effectively. So we wanted to win, right? And we built it in a painstaking way, learning a lot of lessons along the way. But most of all, never giving up. Things went wrong consistently. And so we didn't really have the benefit of family support other than family love and encouragement to launch the businesses and go from level to level.
Mm-hmm. This afternoon I was talking to a young guy who's also self-employed, small business, and he was telling me that, there's going to be a golf tournament during the weekend, and I said, I hope you're going. He says, no, that's not my level. I can't be there, and it just got me thinking that when someone feels like because they have a small business, they cannot be at the same place with you to play golf. That mentality, Wale, what can you say about that and some advice to young people who feel like that? And I had to joke and say, so what will you be doing? Will you be watching football because golf is for rich people and older people?
No, I mean, without a doubt, it's the wrong mindset. You have to have a mindset to win, which basically means that you don't wait to be invited. Mm-hmm. You step forward and offer yourself. And so, if you want to win, you've got to ask yourself where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years. You have to have a vision and start acting out that vision. You're going to, if you have a vision to fail or you have a vision never to achieve much, then you won't achieve much. If you have a vision to succeed, okay, and your dreams must scare you. If your dreams don't scare you, then you're not ambitious enough. Mm-hmm. And ambition really drives the human mind. I mean, how would people have gone to the moon if they couldn't dream? How would people have crossed the oceans on boats if they couldn't dream of vision? The life is about risk, and that risk really needs to be reduced. It's not just institutional risk. That risk also is down to our person. And so our capacity to vision a future, a positive future for ourselves, is also going to be the reason why we will succeed in that vision or fail in that vision. Mm-hmm. So in my case, our company is for winners. We make it clear when we wake up in the morning and we go to work, we want to win in Orlando. We don't want to be average. If you want to be average, then don't come here. It's not a place for you. It's a place for people who want to excel, okay, who want to win, who want to do something different, who want to change the narrative of Africa, okay? And it's a very proudly indigenous company that wants to do things globally. And that's how we think. We think world class and we act world class, okay? And our dreams, our aspirations are never to do what an average institution does. And that's how we focus and that's how we achieve, that's how we grow.
All right. Let's talk about the countries that you're in right now in Africa. You tell us how many and room for expansion. Which other countries are you looking into going into?
From our trading operation, we work with most African countries on the coastline. So for everything from Côte d'Ivoire to Senegal to South Africa, we have Angola. We're quite active. Algeria. We've done business right across the continent.
All right. Now, Africa's young population is also full of untapped potential. This we keep talking about. And how can the energy sector become a platform for youth empowerment, and what role should leaders like you play in mentoring the next generation?
I think it's definitely important that we do more, we communicate more, I feel like Africa as a continent is one where we've had too many excuses. We've all come out of colonialism, we've come out of exploitation by the West, but the reality is that they were selfish for their own economic reasons. They took our resources to develop their own continents. But we need to get organized. Those resources are still abundant in Africa, and they're still substantial. Why are we not managing those resources and extracting them as well as we should do? It's down to what I would call our above ground system of managing ourselves, everything from our political institutions to economic institutions to our social services needs to be more efficient. It's only with an efficient society, okay, that we can truly extract a lot of those resources. So I think there needs to be a consistent conversation which encourages the youth to see opportunity, not just in executing, in doing things, but understanding that there has to be a bit more activism to get the correct social parameters to enable things happen. It's what you canvas for, it's what you demand that you get in the long term. So one of the things that I like that the current president is doing is creating a credit society. So for example, student loans. Student loans didn't exist. Everybody should have a right to go to university, but half the time they can't go because they can't afford it. Now, if you get a university education, chances are you will be 95% better able to contribute more to society because you're educated, which means you can pay back that loan. So if we shift our attitudes and start to treat the student loan as something which the banks can give, the government can in its own way subsidize by reducing the interest and making it non, but it's not payable till you start working and you pay for it over time. It effectively allows a whole range of people who would never have gone to school, go to school. It also stimulates the educational system because it now allows institutions to be built, which would never have been built while they were waiting for government subvention, but are being built because students have loans to pay for an education, and the ecosystem continues. Same thing with consumer credit and the capacity for people to buy things. And that's how you move from poverty into middle class. It's by having, financial capacity to have a home. A middle class basically is a fridge, a freezer, air conditioning, and a car, and all your kids in school. That's definition really of middle class.
Right. I hope the youth can really tap into your advice and try and obviously improve wherever they're lacking, Wale. But I want you to listen a little bit as we wrap up, just some beyond the boardroom personal segment. When you are not negotiating billion-dollar deals, how do you unwind or recharge?
I just like to read. My favorite pastime in the world is to read.
Okay.
I find reading really soothing, and it allows me to go into my fantasy world. So wow. I think of different things, think of different ideas, and that really is two things I like. I like the sea. I like water. I like staring at water. So my idea of a good time to unwind is a good book, standing next to an ocean, a sea, or a river.
Interesting.
And sitting down there reading it.
Right. And you are stranded on a desert island. You can bring only 3 things. What makes the cut?
Certainly books. Second thing would be music.
Okay.
Third thing, wow. I can't.
You will have to pick something.
Well, it probably have to be my wife. If not, I'll get into trouble.
Okay, and what's one talent, passion, or hobby you have that might surprise people, might surprise everyone in this room?
Talent or hobby? Well, I really like music.
Okay.
You know, I've often thought to myself that I would have been a good music producer if I wasn't in.
It's not too late.
If I wasn't in the old business, I probably would be in the music industry.
You can do it on the side.
And so that I have a creative streak to me that is secret.
Okay.
And it really hasn't. I think I could write music. I think I could write books. You know, I think I could be involved in movie production.
Okay.
And so that's an area which nobody ever reconciles with the boardroom personality.
Right. Speaking of movies, if your life were a movie, what would it be called, and who would play you on screen?
Maybe Denzel Washington will be called Leading with Resilience.
Okay, Leading with Resilience. I like that. And if you could teleport anywhere in the world right now for 24 hours, where would you go and why?
Where would I go and why? It's an interesting question. I certainly would go somewhere where there's a lot of water. Maybe somewhere like Bali.
Okay.
You know, somewhere in Asia. Why? You know, there's water, there's healing. You know, I like meditation, massages. I want to do a lot of yoga. I haven't had the chance to do it, but in all this running around. But I think something along those lines would be. I wouldn't mind going there for 24 hours right now.
Right.
And relax a little.
Any advice, your parting words, especially to business people in Africa or beyond, and youths as well?
It's a land of opportunity, but you need to focus on what you can achieve out of it and reduce the notion of challenge. You know, battles are won before they are fought. Okay, and if you look at Africa from the point of view of all the things that are wrong, then you won't win. You know, there's a little old adage that I heard this story where somebody got sent from Europe to Africa, and his business was shoes, and he arrived on a ship, and he said, walked around the town, found out that nobody was wearing shoes, and then he sent a telex back to the UK to say, waste of money, waste of time. Nobody wears shoes in Africa. There's no opportunity. And got on the next boat and left. The next salesman from another country showed up in Africa, okay, and walked around and noticed that nobody was wearing shoes. And he sent a telex back to another country, maybe it was Germany.
Oh, no.
And he said, wonderful opportunity. Nobody has shoes. Nobody wears shoes.
Yeah.
We're in business. Yeah. Send a whole container load of shoes out, a whole shipload of shoes out here. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I see Africa.
Right.
You know, you have to look at Africa from its opportunity, you know, and not from its challenge, and you will do well, because it's an environment where everything needs to be provided, and everything is being provided in short supply or not being provided with optimal capacity. So even though we have mobile phones in Africa, we all complain we have bandwidth problems. The bandwidth is poor, it's unstable. Okay, I want to do more with what I have, but I can't do more with what I have. So that's Africa. Every single thing still needs additional investment or support, hence the opportunity.
Right. Thank you so much, Wale Tinubu, for joining us here on Beyond the Deal. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
There you go. Africa has been speaking to Wale Tinubu here in Nigeria on Beyond the Deal. Until the next one, my name is Josephine Mahachi. It's bye for now.